Good evening. I am your guest host for tonight, and my name is Umdazana Wagamahlangu Unombuso, and I'll be with you for tonight's show. And of course, I am out here in isolation by myself as we are all in the 21 days of quarantining on our lockdown. Tonight, we'll be watching a 24-minute insert that is very inspiring about a young man whose name is Deborah, who has gone out to influence and help out vulnerable children and communities. Let's get down to watching his story. Often for vulnerable people in South Africa, whether extreme poverty or poor health, life to them becomes nothing but a heavy burden. But Deborah Masike is one of the South Africans who's decided to roll up his sleeves and ease that burden. Once stewing in financial problems, he's now a successful businessman with a heart of gold.
Here we do marketing and distribution. We are route to market specialists focusing on activations and specialized distribution. We distribute for companies like Tiger Brands Foundation, and then we work with a whole lot of other brands like Adcock Ingrams. We work with Outdoor Africa. We do a whole lot of work for a lot of the FMCG brands.
And that success didn't come cheap for him.
That came about with a lot of hard work, a lot of persistence, and a lot of challenges. But we've soldiered through the challenges, most of which were finance, were accessing the clients, capacity building, and things like that. We didn't start out having this warehouse. We actually started off in a room. We didn't warehouse our own stock. We used to get stock from somewhere, and we hired warehouses inside other people's warehouses up until we ended up getting our own. This is pretty much our third business. And at the end of our second business, I went through so many financial challenges that literally put me at the brink of liquidation. Had houses repossessed, had vehicles repossessed. And that's very tough, having to try to push through that and start a new business, because now you start this business and you're still owing banks, you're still trying to clear your name, you still can't get loans, you still can't get finance, because now you're in judgments, you're fighting for your name and you're trying to clear the debt. It took me about 4 years into this business to actually clear my debt. So that it wasn't very easy. It was very emotional in the sense that you knew you couldn't apply for credit, you couldn't open accounts to buy stock, you couldn't get finance to buy vehicles and trucks and all these assets that you need for this journey. So a lot of the financing, I had to finance the business from its own profits. So every time we make something, I had to put it back into the business to actually fund it to get to where it is.
After overcoming all these challenges and becoming successful, you'd expect Deborah to sit back and enjoy the good life.
We always wanted to give, and I was giving at a small scale, because at the end of the day, when you're in business, being from where we're from in the townships, people don't see the struggles that you go through. They just see a businessman, so this one needs this one asks this for help and whatnot. And growing used to that, I had to model it within the business to say, how can this business assist in the future? We give out food and other things to a number of orphanages, and also we also sponsor 2 schools with breakfast on a daily basis. One of the schools is Limpopo in Northwest. We've been sponsoring them since 2015. It's a school of kids with special needs. So when you get to that school, you get to see the need for the kind of support that we give. Food being the main source of help that we give is simply because we work with food. It's what's accessible to us. Food, at the same time, for nutrition, we believe nutrition is the key to a lot of things. You can't concentrate in school on a hungry stomach. These kids sometimes, that's the only meal they eat, and we offer breakfast. So that's the first meal of the day. Then they get to focus. If you look at the difference that it makes, from absenteeism and things like that.
And is very strict with hygiene.
Because we deal with food, hygiene is utmost. We are in a country right now where not so long ago we had listeriosis and things like that. So hygiene is extremely important. We are inspected on such because we're a food warehouser. We ensure that the trucks are clean before they carry the food. We ensure that even where we store the food in those schools, it's very hygienic. We'd rather a child is sick because they are healthy. You get what I'm trying to say, but not because they ate something that got contaminated by some things, you know. Even when you look at our warehouse, the cleaning is actually completely separated from the food. Yes.
Deborah says he didn't have to think twice about his philanthropy. It is a value that was instilled at home.
I was raised that way. You know, my mother was somebody that was always giving. My mother was somebody that was always saying, let's give. You know, whether it was clothes that are old that you're no longer wearing, whether it was food, she would always make and bake and give. You know what I'm trying to say? So I was raised with that. And she was a teacher. Both my parents were in teaching. So even at school, she taught in a school where there was a lot of child-headed households. And she would always say, there's this kid that doesn't have shoes. There's this kid that doesn't have food at home. There's this kid that doesn't have this. You know, me being in the space that I'm in, obviously, she knew that I could assist.
And it doesn't let the cost factor affect his good work.
Look, to date, if you look that we're giving to a school of about 500 kids who feed them every single day. We're giving to this school of about 250 kids that we feed every single day over a period. We're talking about 2.5 million rands.
His heart is closer to the most vulnerable in society. Welcome back to Expressions. Deborah Masike is an entrepreneur and a philanthropist whose work has helped a lot of young people and those of their communities. Let's take a look at this insert. Buried deep in the impoverished streets of Orange Farm just outside Johannesburg is Thato Kimatla Orphanage. Named after the word love, the orphanage embodies the power and meaning. Just the antidote needed for the children who came here with various problems. The orphanage has been surviving through handouts and as a result is one of the homes Deborah has targeted.
We are involved not only in schools but in orphanages, as I said, you know, where we look at the kind of life that is in the orphanage, the kind of infrastructure that the kids in the orphans live in. Sometimes we'll get there, we'll paint. Sometimes we'll get there, give them Christmas parties. Sometimes we'll get there and do maintenance work, you know, really try to assist over and above just food.
This is Disebo Dipolo, founder of the orphanage.
Lebaka la ka la hore ke iqale ke ne ke thusa ngwana lebitso la ke Thato. Thato ona kula mme wa hae a dula le ausi wa mme wa hae. Ausi wa mme wa hae ana le bana like 4 children and then bana le problem ya financial problem asa sebetse ba sena dijo and Thato a tlamehile hore a thole treatment but Thato na sena certificate and then somebody introduce nna ko Thato because ne ke sebetsa ko hospice. Hake offer and then come phonela the lady we meet and then ne ke dula ko one room at the backyard ke hirile and then the lady come le Thato and then Thato was very sick. Ntho ke yentseng ke phonetse mosebetsing because ne ke hla ko night chiefing and then ke offer and ask my manager gore ke kopa help because Thato wa kula and then o need a thuso o need a ntlo gore a tlo dula mo because ne ke tseba gore mo ho dula bana fela and then ba tshwanang le Thato but unfortunately the house was full.
This is what propelled Disebo to open this center, a sacrifice she says was worth making.
I end up kingala ko mosebetsing ke tloela mosebetsi ha ke tloela mosebetsi ka batla a 4-room house ka dula ko yona ka renta 4-room house ka kenya mkhukhu ka morao ka etsa kitchen le ka more ya ka ka mokhukhung, and then ka for room ne le dibete tse 3 ne ke di etseditse bana, and then le TV room, and then ka dula mo le bana until ka register as a NPO. And then is where I started to go different social workers ke ba jwetsa mosebetsi o ko etsang lo nka bana lo thusa bana, and then thato ke matla yeah e qadile mo from 2007 until now. At the weekend like a be lo go maponisa ba thotse ngwana o lahleile le bosiu ba mfounela le ka 12 le ka 2 le ka nako mang ha ona le ngwana tlameile ngwana a tle a torojatswa, and then ba tla re ngwana o tsaiswa di social working ning it take like more years o thola ngwana o dutse mona ha tsebahale.
The center currently accommodates more than 40 children, and without the help of people like Deborah, Disebo shudders to think how she would have managed.
The challenge ke dijo bana ba bangata ana le challenge ya dijo, ana le challenge ya finance. We need more people but listen chelete, and then ke dintho tsa bana tsa o hlapa Teboho o tlile, and then a re thusa ka dijo ona ntse re thusa ka dijo, and then I don't want to lie ne le dijo tse bonahalang because there were sometimes go tlisetsa body jam body sipa tsa o hlapa tsa o hlatswa body phofo body rice body tini body tswekere, and dijo tse bonahalang ne di re thusa haholo, ne re di thusa because bana ne ba ja ne ba sa go ba le ba sa ja, and then ne di eda lo tse re nang le tsona.
The center is not the only place that Deborah reaches out to. Limpopo is a school for children with special needs in the outskirts of Northwest. Deborah has been feeding the school every day for the past 5 years.
It's part of the reason. You know, if you look into the area where the school is, you know, if you look at, you know, it's a very needy town. It's a very needy. It's semi-rural. You know, so I tend to support places places that are like that, where there isn't much options around you. You know, so we come as that option so that you don't really have to focus on, I wish I wasn't here, I wish I lived somewhere else, or I wish whatever. So that's number one. Number two is, yes, being special, kids of special needs, you know, that really touched, you know. And I was also touched by the principal that started the school, because all these schools get started by individuals.
Molimpane is the lady who founded it.
It was founded in 1993, and the reason was there was no school that caters for the intellectually disabled learners around here. At the moment, we are catering all the surrounding villages around Brits.
For many of the children, the school is a safe haven.
They were not treated well. The learners were taken as if they are mad or some sort, and so their parents were also having a problem. They couldn't go to work. They have to sit with their learners the whole day, watch them, because when they go out, most of them got lost. And the community were not treating them well because by then there was no education about the learners who are intellectually disabled or disabled of some sort. So it was really a challenge for the parents and both the learners.
But that was not the only hurdle she had to overcome. She soon realized that the need extended beyond the school walls.
Before we had the NSNP and Nungu coming in, it was a problem. I usually asked my educators and some staff members that we must bring something from home so that all these learners who doesn't have food, we must feed them. So we usually bring more than what we are going to eat, and we share with these kids. because we saw the problem with learners not eating. And then even after the NSNP, because the NSNP came before this breakfast that we are having, during those NSNP time, some of our learners, they only came during the break time just to have meal. And some, it was a meal for the day. They didn't have anything from home. So Nungu visited our school, and after seeing these learners, he was very touched. He was very touched and promised that, Mama, I'm going to help your school. I'm going to adopt your school. You are going to get breakfast. And since then, our learners are happy.
Providing food for the learners helped solve many other problems in the community. Now, a child-headed household that Deborah found and is helping out with food parcels and more is now out to thank him for his great work. Let's take a look. Prior to this interview, Deborah was not aware that his generosity stretched beyond the school walls. This is a child-headed home. We talked to 23-year-old Precious Mutubati, who looks after her two siblings by herself.
My younger sister and my younger brother. Ahona motho o moholo, like ahona motsadi. Ke gona ge le bana ge le bane fela. We had a brother. My brother was shot in 2018. He was shot and killed go high, and then he was the breadwinner go high. So after his death, things once again got heated for us because of the only money that we live on. So that's the money that we use for surviving, for physiological needs. We use it. And then that's not all, we also use it for transport higher. And then I also get in a school in a college, so I have to use money go school on daily basis.
And in terms of food,
hey, it's not easy. Like I mentioned, I rely more social granting so sometimes on a daily basis, like breakfast, the way daily. So but all thanks to Abu Deborah, because of ever since I introduced this thing, I give out breakfast to Bana Kodikolong. A lot because of Bona, they send it as breakfast, not knowing there are families like mine, they don't just use it as breakfast. Buy it for lunch, buy it for supper. So I would tell her it's again,
The food has been providing much needed relief to this family.
The job from Koskolong to for high, by the Rumela Kangwana. My teacher about the Rumela Kangwana. I cannot tell her for how long, but anytime, like I can see fella and then one at like a zona. It's not the job fella that's a tiger brand, but also banana garden Koskolong. So if something said of her in Barasandela the vegetables by the Rumela Kangwana is.
As much as she welcomes the handouts, she wants something more sustainable.
Firstly, if only Nkakira too, so because of right now Kira N6 yaga, and then after I complete my N6, Simina Kikira internship, and then obviously it's hard to get the internship more. So if only I can get help Bantu Sahora Kikira internship yaga. And then the other thing happened because of my younger sister. I was told at school or school because of she had a child. I didn't school and then there was no hope. So Lena, I just wish gore somebody a ka tla a mo thusa a boela gape sekolong because of ke batla gore a ye sekolong.
And luckily, after having met her for the first time, Deborah has offered a hand. Deborah said giving is a value that was instilled at home. We met his father, who told us more about his upbringing.
Deborah was like any other child in the main, but because being the first child, we happened to be very close to him, more than any other. We were still very youthful when we had Deborah. I would say because, apart from the fact that he was the only child as a firstborn, we had with us a number of other children from extended family that we stayed with, that we saw to school and looked after. And I think from that point he could see that there is also living and sharing, and we would not treat him differently from them as children of our own home, and he would be very comfortable with that. And I saw it also help him in socializing, in making sure that he can relate to other people other than his own, own blood brothers.
With his mother having passed away recently, his father can't help but be proud of him.
It gives us pleasure. It makes us feel proud of him, and for the fact that there were also charities that were also funding, contributing towards as a couple with my wife, with his mother. He is actually continuing with that kind of legacy, and I think he has done it on a larger scale. More so that we were doing it on a tipend or a stipend, and he's doing much more, and for that we would encourage him a lot to do so.
And this is what he wishes for him.
My dream or my wish is to see him with his family at a point where he could fund learners who could go and do business, maybe starting off with his own children at home to give them a lifeline in the future that is different from the norm.
The bigger goal is to inspire other business people like myself who want to give but don't have a clue in terms of where to start, to show them that there are fears sometimes that you give people money and they misuse it, or you give people money and it's thrown down the drain, that there are structures and there are ways of actually seeing to it that your investment in our people can really go to good use,
As Mahatma Gandhi says, be the change that you want to see. It is people like Deborah who give us hope for a brighter future. Wow, that was a very inspiring story from Deborah Masike, and we wish him all the best of luck in his philanthropy work. And now on very exciting news, guys, Expressions is moving time slots to Mondays at 5 p.m. So from Tuesdays to Monday, we hope to see you next week on Monday at 5 p.m. And for tonight, it's a goodbye for now.